In today's lecture, we're going to focus on a subtopic of quantum physics, namely the Riz field. If you want to Riz up your desired baddie this upcoming Valentine's Day, you must first understand the physics behind Riz before making any moves. Let's begin by discussing the properties of Riz. Number 1. There are two types of Riz, positive and negative Riz. Positive will attract people, negative will repel people. Pretty straightforward. Number 2. The law of conservation of Riz states that Riz cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. And number 3. Riz is quantized, and the fundamental unit is 1.6 times 10 to the negative 19 Rizloms. Let's take a look at a visual of the Riz field between a guy with positive Riz and a guy with negative Riz. Now, I'm not an artist, okay? This is a more accurate representation of the Riz field, but just bear with me. Notice the differing directions of the arrows. P plus will have an attractive Riz field, whereas P minus will have a repulsive Riz field. And so this behavior will lead us to our Riz field equation. Now, I'm not going to dive into the derivation of this equation. Even though it's the second day of class, we're already 15 topics behind, so we don't have time for it. But you can look at it at your textbook if you want. Anyways, this is the Riz field due to a person. Big R is the Riz field due to P. K is just the constant, which is 9 times 10 to the 9 Newton meters squared over Rizlom squared. Big P is the amount of Riz a dude has. R hat is just simply the direction of the position vector going from big P to little p. And lastly, little r is just the magnitude of this vector, or just the distance. Now let's dive into some example problems. Number 1. What is the Riz field 20 centimeters east of a person with a Riz of 3 micro Rizloms? So what's the first step? Draw a picture. Now let's set up our coordinate system. Let's make east, or the I hat direction, positive, and we have our equation here on the side as the guidelines. Vector r, it's just 0.2 meters in the I hat direction. The magnitude is 0.2 meters, and the direction is I. We have all the variables we need for our equation, so let's just start plugging in stuff. K is just 9 times 10 to the 9. For P, let's convert our 3 micro Rizloms to Rizloms, so we get this. Little r is just the magnitude of vector r, so 0.2. And just multiply that by I. And we get negative 675,000 I, which equates to 675,000 newtons over Rizloms to the west. Now, what does this result mean? It means that a baddie at this distance will experience a force with this intensity towards the person with the positive Riz. In other words, a person with positive Riz will be pulling baddies left and right, up and down. Now, what if the person had a negative Riz? This is the exact same problem, but the 3 micro Rizloms now has a negative sign next to it. Notice that the negative signs will cancel out in our equation, and it will leave us with the positive 675,000 in the I hat direction, or 675,000 n over r to the east, which means that the baddie will be pushed away from the person, and hence he will get no girls. This is the end of our lecture, and I hope you guys learned something, and I wish you guys with emotional strength on Valentine's Day.